So, girlfriend, is God pulling you away from things to pull you closer towards him? That is the question that we are going to answer today. I made a super rookie YouTube mistake, and that was not making sure my lighting was up to par when I was recording in the dark and with my camera, and I was a little bit further away, different location. So YouTube quality on this is a little bit but the content itself is a banger. So I am going to drop the Apple and Spotify links to it because it might just be the thing that you've been waiting for or looking for to really like solidify your relationship with God, things you might need to clean up in your life. So I want you to get this information. Hey bestie, welcome back to the Own Your Era podcast. It's your girl Yolanda, and we are coming to you live from the couch. If you've seen my setup before, you will know that I actually have a neon sign that says, "Hey bestie," and I've asked this man more than once if he could hang it, and it is not getting done. So we need to follow up on that because that is not a girl job. I am super excited to hang out with you for the next little bit to talk about unintentional fasting and how God may be calling you to give up things in your life. But before we dive into that, I do want to mention that this episode will not have an intro because I need to re-record it. I have been very unfiltered as far as language for a very long time. It is a way that I have, quote, always just been. And it's actually something that now I feel called to be really intentional about cleaning up my language a little bit, and doing so not because other people are criticizing me, but because it just feels way more aligned not to cuss. I am telling you, like, this 180 seems so crazy. And if you're watching this, you're like, whoa, this girl has gone off the deep end. Trust me, I am battling those feelings every single day, but also realizing that a lot of times doubt is the enemy. What is keeping you stuck, stagnant, and God further away from you? And he's always close to you, not to be confused, but for you really having that relationship with him, which dives right into personal experience today of how I, in hindsight now, looking back on this, am like, whoa, he was calling me in this way, and the call was getting louder and louder, and it looked like me ditching things or having aversions to things, and then things that I was saying I wanted to pick up, that it was like, where is any of this coming from? But knock knock, that was him knocking on the door talking about, honey, I need you to find me, to believe in me, to trust in me, and to surrender to me, because in January I'm about to shake your entire life up. Basically, God was saying, girl, I need you to get prepared. And so it looked like a few things that, again, seemed unexplainable to me, because when you really learn to get quiet and listen to yourself and stop being in your ego or just fighting, right? We get so caught up in just fighting and holding ourselves back. Summertime, August, September, it probably was even before that, probably was like June, July. And this is one of these things that I'm going to tell you, if you're feeling called to do something different, girl, please go towards that. Because when you are going to become something different, it requires you to do different. What got you where you are right now is amazing, wonderful, love it, but it is not going to get you to the next step. And so you may notice that you're feeling pulled away from certain things or pulled towards certain things. And I'm going to tell you, please honor that. The more that you get quiet, the more that you get still with yourself, you're going to be able to discern a lot of things. So over the summertime, I kept saying, I want to go to church. I was not a church girly growing up. This is not something that I was made to do. I had never read a Bible, let alone owned a Bible in all of my life until last year when a friend gave it to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And also did not open it for months, okay? So I was having this pull or feeling toward God. I kept telling people, I want to go to church. I want to go to church. And I'm sure that people were like, Yolanda, shut up and go. But again, you have to have a lot of compassion for people. And this is something that I am personally learning, is how to be more compassionate, how to have more grace towards people. And this is humbling, being an avoidant type and maybe not always having empathy and lacking empathy. And that just is where I've been, but it's not where I'm trying to go. Okay, honey, we are making changes. But this feeling of, or having more compassion toward people when they're starting to walk in their journey. And I want to just take a moment to say thank you, because I have a lot of people that have reached out to me at this point like, girl, I am so glad that you got here, or you're the queen of pivoting and just going for it and sharing that like really loudly and boldly, and having people be like, girl, I've been praying for you, and me being like, you're praying for me, girl? What do you mean? Like, why are you saying I need Jesus? But hello, we all need Jesus. And I'm so grateful that there were people like, girl, now that I'm sitting in prayer every single day, that there are people that were like, yes, Jesus, I hope Yolanda finds you. Or I don't know how they were asking, but if you were one of those people, thank you so much. Prayers are answered. She's here now. She is with him. So excited about it. And then there's also this gratitude that I have for people seeing me for where I was at, seeing me for like, she's just in this, she's cussing all the time, she's a little loud. I'm always going to be loud, girl. Like, well, I don't know. I don't even want to put absolutes on anything anymore, because he will laugh at you all the time, and you just have to kind of buckle up and be like, okay, Jesus, okay, God, like, let's go. So really just grateful for that, and people having compassion, and me understanding that I also need to have more compassion for people. So again, God will humble you all the time, right? God will send people into your life to humble you. God will send people into your life to make you face your demons, essentially, right? All the things that you thought of one way, he will send people to you to radically shift and change your mind about those things. I'm living in that right now. It is kind of wild and it's very uncomfortable, but it is something I'm super excited about. So I know that was a little bit of a tangent, but anyway, if you were praying for me, thank you so much. And it's one of these things, I know that I was always really resistant when people would say things like sending prayers, and I would always be like, I'm sending you my thoughts and love or vibes. And I'm very careful now not to be like, I'm going to pray for you unless I'm actually going to pray, because I do think that people can get in this like space of just saying things to say things and not saying and doing. So, girlfriend, is God pulling you away from things to pull you closer towards him? That is the question that we are going to answer today. And I want you to sit down and think about what in the last year, 6 months, girl, it might even be 2 weeks. Like, when he moves. But what is something that you've been feeling like you want to distance yourself from? Is it a friend group? This is a big thing. I have gone through that. And oftentimes I have felt very like weird about, vibes don't match anymore. I just don't necessarily feel like putting my energy there. And this might be me struggling to be a bad friend. Absolutely, yes. I don't want to make and put everything in, oh, well, it was just God calling me. But there are ways that I do think that he calls you, and he calls you away from people sometimes. And so I had noticed there was like kind of like a scandal-ish thing and caused a lot of riffraff amongst some people that I was hanging out with. And before even any of this stuff went down, there was something telling me, girl, I think that this has served you. It's done what it's needed to do. Pull away, pull away, pull away. And that is a big thing, is isolation. Girl, it will literally make you feel crazy when God is like calling you and you are almost forced to isolate. And again, it looks like you being really selective about your energy, not understanding it all the time. But if you're on this journey, if you're seeking, I'm going to really challenge you, get quiet and start listening. Start asking yourself, what about this do I need to pull myself away from, or I want to pull away from? God works in mysterious ways you might not always know. But that was over like spring, summer. I started distancing myself from this group of people, just kind of being like, whatever. And I'm really good at that, almost to a fault of, again, I'm not perfect. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I do have this habit of where I will just like find myself just pulling away from things. Looking back at it, that was like very dark, very, very dark, not great. Don't know what benefit it was actually adding into my life if I were to get truly honest. That was one way that I do feel God was calling me, right? Calling me to look at my circle. And you're going to find that sometimes your circle might get smaller before it gets bigger. And for me, there have been just some life choices and changes that I've made where there's just certain things that don't feel in alignment right now. And I don't want to be around them. And I think that this is where like we have to get very unapologetic about just owning our era and where we are, and not looking like, I'm sorry, I don't feel like going out and being out till 2, 3 o'clock, staying out till 7 o'clock in the morning, because it's not really doing anything for me at this point. And understanding that you don't have to say bye to people and like get rid of them, but really helping people understand that this is not where I'm at. I love you. I would still like to show up and hang out with you, but girl, that is going to look like coffee. That might look like us going to church together. That might look like, us doing something completely different that we're not used to doing. I'm going to give you things that are like very recent, because I know that I've been like showing up and talking about these things on my social media or whatever. So it doesn't feel like it's so far stretched. Like, I want you to know that this is all relatively new, and just how powerful and impactful God is when you start allowing him and you build that relationship with him. I have wanted to quit vaping for a while because I vaped for one vape way too many. Back in like May of this year. So I got pregnant in February. It was like, oopsie, scoopsie, but we're in it. And dealt with all of that, the emotions, the scared, excitement, like all the things. Took a pregnancy test, and then the very next day I started bleeding and I was miscarrying because I was having something which is called a chemical pregnancy. There's a podcast episode about that. I will link it in the show notes for you. But after that, and my boyfriend and I kind of being like, whoa, like, we probably need to figure this out. Am I going to be able to have a kid? All these things. I hired a coach to help me balance out my hormones. And I'm pretty sure it was during that time I had quit drinking, and I also quit vaping and did so well. But I had no faith or conviction back in spring. I knew that there was something operating, but to me that was always the universe. That was never like, oh, that's God and I know him and I talk to him and I show up with him and pray to him. That I had none of that last May. I distinctly remember going through this, doing so well for like 50 days, didn't have a vape, was eating on this meal plan, and then I just got super burnt out behind it. And I believe I got burnt out because it wasn't led by faith, if that makes sense. It was more led in fear. It was fear of, oh my gosh, I'm almost turning 40. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get pregnant. Fear, fear, fear. Anxiety, anxiety, anxiety. Anxiety and fear are not God-led traits, okay? So if you're dealing with anxiety, you really got to start asking yourself that too, right? Like, how can you call on God to help you through that, right? If God wants me, if I am meant to, in my plan of life, to have a child, I realize that it is up to me to surrender and let go and know that he's got a plan for us if that's in the cards, period. And that's just where I am with many things in my life right now. So I do feel like I hired that coach and I did all that, and it was just very like rooted in fear versus being rooted in, I'm doing this out of faith. I'm doing this because God, if you have a child for me, I need to do all the things that I need to do to get ready, to be prepared. But that is not where that was coming from. That was coming from, oh my gosh, I'm so scared. I had this miscarriage. I've never been pregnant before. Anxiety, anxiety, fear, fear, fear. And so I lasted about 50 days, didn't have a vape. And then distinctly remember one night hanging out with my boyfriend, one of his friends, and I hadn't drank in a long time. They were like, come on, just have like a glass of wine. Girl, peer pressure is the thing, okay? It is the enemy. Watch out for him. And they were just like, come on, come on, come on. You have power to say no all the time. But I was just like, you know what? I'm burnt out. I'm stressed out. I'm not so happy about many things in my life. Cool. Let me hit that vape. And then again, I was back in the saddle buying vapes. If you have vaped for a while, you would know that sometimes you get to this point where it's like they're not good anymore. Do you know what I'm talking about? We'll get to this point where your vapes don't taste good, or you are trying new flavors and they don't taste good. And you're always chasing this first high or hit of a vape. This sounds like such crackhead tendency, but they are highly addictive. And so that first time, like when I went 50 days without the vape and then I hit it for the first time, you get the greatest buzz ever. And sometimes I'm still to this day like, girl, a little taste would be great. But no, we are not doing that. It is not serving us. But after that, and you start vaping all the time, you're just doing it out of this. It is hand to mouth, addiction, I think. And then on top of that, the nicotine. Some people do get highly addicted to the nicotine, and I'm sure that I was addicted to a point. But in November, I just got disgusted. I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, what point is this serving me? And it wasn't. I had a vape, and I remember just saying, and it was November 17th. I don't know, just remember this date. And I said, I hit it one time in the morning, and I was like, I'm done with this. I am done with this. And that time I really just felt like I meant it. Like, I am so done with this. And I was still going out, drinking, having a good time here and there. But I kicked the vape, and it has been over 75 days. Look at her go. It's been over 75 days since I have hit a vape. And the first couple of weeks, because it's such a hand-to-mouth habit, I would notice I would just be sitting at my desk. It's really interesting when you start looking at your habits with things. And it was I eat, I want to vape. I have a sip of wine, I want to vape. I'm out in public, I want to sneak to the bathroom and hit my vape. I am sitting at my desk working, vape. I have to get on a Zoom call. Oh my gosh, I've got 1 minute before I get on, vape, because I can't hit a vape in for 30 minutes or 40 minutes, however long I'm on this meeting. But also, maybe sometimes I'm turning off the camera to be like, hey guys, BRB, and I'm hitting a vape. So gross. Like, absolutely, positively so disgusting. And I'm not judging you if you vape, but that is just where I got with it with myself. I kicked the vape, and there are times where I still think about it. I will be 100% honest. I still think about it, but I have been around other people, though I was not drinking because I haven't been drinking. We're going to roll into that, but haven't hit the vape, have been around people that have been drinking and vaping and have not done that. Let's recap real quick. 1, God started pulling me away from certain people. 2, God started pulling me toward him, right? I want to go to church, I kept saying. This is weird. Why do I want to go to church? Couldn't understand that. 3, so that was him pulling me toward him. 3, unintentional fasting of getting rid of the vape. That needed to go. That needed to be a habit, something to kick, something where I had enough discipline to say, okay, I'm not doing that. Same thing goes with waking up in the morning, doing your prayer and your devotional and reading the Bible and studying God's word. Let's go. Oh my gosh. This is so weird, but like even 4 months ago, if you told me I would be recording a podcast about this, I'd be like, girl, you crazy. But again, stranger things. So the next thing, and I just mentioned this, was drinking. My boyfriend and I, like, that's kind of was like basis beginning of our relationship. We had a lot of, quote, fun together in this way of drinking, going to shows, partying, staying up late at night. And these things served me personally until they stopped serving me. And it just looked like New Year came around. I passed out very early. I think I had a glass of wine. And that was like it. I was out before the ball dropped or any of this stuff. And then when New Year's Day, maybe a couple of days after rolled around, I had like a sip of wine, and then I was like, you know what? I'm good. I'm good on that. I don't need to drink anymore. And I am so grateful that I've kicked some of these bad habits leading up to this really hard situation in life that I was going to go through, because I'm facing my problems. I'm facing my drama. I am not numbing this stuff. And as much as people, and myself included, I'm not saying I'm never going to drink again, but we really do look at alcohol and it's so socially acceptable, but it literally is poison to your body. There is no benefit to drinking. There literally is no health benefit to drinking. Like, sit with that for a second. If you go outside and you go for a run, benefit, endorphins, your anaerobic versus your aerobic activity. Amazing. Great for your cardiovascular. Great for stress relief. All these things. Alcohol, a depressant. A literal depressant. How many times do you go out with your friends? Again, this is not me being a perfect angel. I've been there. You go out with your friends. You're up all night. You're maybe doing recreational party things in addition to drinking. And then you're literally hung over for 2 to 4 days after. How does that feel good? And like, why do we make that okay? Why do we make it? Why is it so socially acceptable that just on Sunday, you might be laying around feeling like trash and not want to do anything? Like, there is so much more benefit that you could have by waking up, being clear-headed, sitting down, having a clear head, thinking about how you're going to get ahead in your next step of life, how you are going to build a side hustle, because, girl, we can't depend on any job. I don't care who you are, what you do. You cannot depend on anything that you are not 100% CEO in control over, period. And so you really just have to start to think, what are some of the things I'm doing in my life that legitimately zero benefit? Zero benefit. And if anyone can tell me like what the benefit is that you may have to waking up on a Sunday, being hungover till Tuesday, like, what is the benefit? Please, somebody, please slide in the DM if you can find the benefit. And I would have been 6 months ago really resistant to hearing this. And I've had my periods of not drinking and I know how I feel. And then I'll get to a point where I'm like, oh, I kind of want to have a glass of wine, which is totally fine. I'm not going to judge myself for that. But I'm not in this point where I can see myself getting drunk just to get drunk, or getting drunk just to, quote, have fun. Because to me, it is way more fun to wake up and be in a clear mind and go to church on a Sunday. And then come home and be like buzzing and excited and like so lit up to get the week started. Versus, I'm not really happy with my life. I've got stuff that I know I need to work on. So because I want to resist and or avoid these things, or I don't feel like it's, quote, cool or acceptable. And if you're like 40 plus, like, girl, we gotta be doing different things anyway. Like, I am not judging, but who wants to be in the club all the time? Go find another hobby. I think it would be far more fun and more beneficial for me to show up walking in purpose to go serve at a food shelter on a Sunday in my complete right, sober mind, not hungover, full of energy, full of love, allowing God to work through me. Period. That sounds like legitimately so much fun. I feel like this is getting way much longer than I wanted it to be. Okay, so I noticed that I started to, or was being pulled away from drinking or doing recreational tools, the D word, that ultimately were just blocking me from showing up as a better self. And when you come out of your toxic like fuel things, so vaping, drinking, recreational things that you may do, you're going to be in this like haze for a while. It's going to feel uncomfortable for a while until you're like, oh, whoa, I can get up on a Saturday and go for a run. So amazing. This is so perfect. Like, yes, sign me up. Okay. I love it. I love it. This is not to come at you because I've been there. Even up to December,
Oh my god, you guys, I literally got so drunk last night. Like, we went to this, like, fancy place. It was my boyfriend works in tech, and
we went out for my boyfriend's. That probably was the last time that I was intoxicated, actually. Was we went out for my boyfriend's work Christmas party thing. And I just remember getting drunk. And then that next day, I woke up and I still did my run. And I was like, oh my gosh, I am so hungover. I really do think that was one of the last times that I drank in excess. Another way that God was pulling me toward Him, and this wasn't necessarily an elimination, this was more of an addition. The next couple of things I'm going to talk about. On December 1st, for whatever reason, was outside. I think that being outside is where I really get where I hear, because Ralphie just tends to take his time outside. And then if I am not on my phone mindlessly, that I'm very present. And I do think maybe this is when God speaks to me in His own way. But I also think He be waking me up at 3 a.m. And that's a story for another time, sister. But I woke up December 1st, me and Ralphie are out for a walk, and I have this all documented. That's why I'm so glad that I document all of my life, because I have these points to go back and I can say, girl, see, I told you that was truth. I'm not one of these content creators that show up and it's just like, hey girl, I'm over here now and this is where we're doing. No, I'm going to take you on the journey. I'm going to show you. I'm going to peel this back and be like, girl, we can go back and highlight and look at this. So December 1st, I said,
what they say, when a woman changes her hair, she's about to change her life. But where's the research on when a bitch wakes up and she's like, I'm going to start training for a full marathon?
Great. And I realized how important it was for me to take action. Now, God had been working and having me build up all the time, right? So here I am. I'm no longer in vaping at that point. So I have a little bit more clarity, a little bit less fogginess from the chemicals that you're breathing in and inhaling. Let's be FFR. That's out of the way. So when that idea dropped into my head, it was very much like, okay, girl, go for a run. Go for a run. And I've been locked in since early December with my running journey. I've been a little lackadaisical about my cross training in the last couple weeks, but I've been running and consistent and getting better. And it's so crazy to think about. Now, when I go out for a run, there's always this one part of the neighborhood that I get to in my run. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember when this felt so hard. This felt so challenging at one point, and look at where we are now. We're up this hill, no problems, okay? But I did almost pass out on Saturday, so God will humble you every time. But in running, I believe that was a way for God to pull me to Him, because the way that I have used my runs are to listen to worship music. So I am at this point of trying to find more music that speaks about God, because I do believe your input equals your outputs, right? What is going in, what you're feeding all the time is so important. And that's another thing. I don't even have this on the list, but the things that you consume. I've never been one to listen to a lot of mainstream music. When I work out, I like my 3 6 Mafia, but it all is trash. It really is trash. What benefit? Again, I feel so judgmental, and I don't want to come across as that. But when you just start asking yourself, what does a man rapping about the B word and the garden tool word, how does that make you feel good? It might make you feel great, girl. It might make you want to twerk, 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 twerk. Amazing. And I love that for you. I'm not judging. But these are questions that we get to start asking ourselves, especially as we start walking closer and closer. Maybe you're on that edge of trying to figure this out. You're on the edge of trying to understand why you're feeling a certain way. Girl, I've been there. I got you. This is what we're here for. In running, I use that time to think. I use that time, and recently I've noticed myself almost just even talking to God, just out loud, just as I'm running. I love blaring my worship music, even in the gym, and I have to be real cognizant of, girl, you can't sing, so don't be up in here belting these tunes, because nobody wants to hear that. But finding the worship music that's really lit and has a good beat behind it, and all this misconception that I had was like church is so boring. Even like that there's Christian music. These are all things I'm finding. There are Christian rappers. There's music that has like trap beats, but it's not about B's and H's. It's about JC and God, right? And so it really is feeding your mind, feeding your brain. And I think it's beautiful. I believe that God pulled me and called me to start running again, not only for, I want to run a marathon at 40, but for it to be a time of meditation, a time of reflection, a time of worship, time of prayer. I can get out there. I can get lost in a sermon for 40 minutes and blink my eyes, and time has passed. I have been so pulled towards unfollowing certain things in my Instagram, really curating my feed with people that share the word, people that break down the word and help me understand it. And that has led to so much great stuff that I've been finding. Okay. You get to curate to an extent your algorithm and your feed, and you don't have to see things that you don't necessarily want to see or that aren't in alignment for where you're going. All right. It's okay. Unfollow that person. You might be watching this and you need to unfollow me. Okay. I really don't pay attention to it. I think it's hard to pay attention to it when you have a K behind your Instagram, which I don't even care about, but it does make a difference in your following count because I don't know how many people are there. But I've lost followers for sure because there was 10.2K and now it's only at 10K. And if it dips and it goes to 9,000, great. We're just making space for our people. You know what I'm saying? The next thing that I noticed was in December, there is actually content because I shoot content about everything. I want to meditate for 365 days in 2020. Now that was unlike running, and I didn't start it the day that I said it, but I did say it. And so when January 1st rolled around, I did. Oh my gosh, this is so wild now I think about it. Oh my gosh, this is so wild. Oh my goodness. Okay, so January 1st rolled around, I start meditating. I am posting my insight timer every single day. I'm not in the best habit of it, but just making sure that I get it done at least one time a day. And I was a little bit lax. It was easier for me to do it in the period of the morning, to do it right in the morning. But after day 21, which was just like, oh, I'm getting it 3 weeks, baby. And I have a story where I went on my stories and I said, I don't feel called to meditate. I do not feel called to meditate. And then I went on Google and I was looking up difference between meditation and prayer and what's the difference, and ended up on a Reddit thread. And what people were saying were things that I would have said a year ago. The overwhelming consensus that I found was that people said that they only leaned on prayer in times of hardship. And I want you to know you can pray anytime you want. Anytime. Life can be grand and you get to pray. Life can be the worst that you've ever experienced and you get to pray. And prayer is a practice. And so for me, what that pull towards meditation looked like, that looks like me sitting in prayer. I am so excited. It's so weird to say. I am so excited to wake up in the morning and do my memorial building, which I'll do another episode about that because I think it's really cute and important. But I build a memorial. And this is something that I learned in church. And essentially it is you celebrating all that God's done for you and then you asking for what you need and or want him to do for you. And hopefully you're adding other people into that. So I wake up in the morning, I build my memorial. Right now I'm doing a 21-day devotional from our church. And I am so excited to sit with this Bible. That I don't understand all of it, girl, please. What? But it's just opened up this space for me to like learn and be really curious. And I'm absolutely loving it. Absolutely loving it. I bought little tabs from Amazon with like the different books of the Bible. And so I'm always so excited when I'm like, oh, I don't have a tab for this one yet. And now I get to put my tab onto that. And that is just where I am. And sitting in the morning with that is amazing. Okay, so that was a way that God was pulling me towards him. He wanted me to sit down and meditate, which, well, what I thought looked like meditation before I really accepted Jesus. It looked like meditation, and then it quickly became, this is about praying. Okay, and specifically like really praying and being intentional and getting into the Bible and learning the Bible. Remember, guys, this is all new for me. So I go to church, and to hear the pastor talk about certain names in the Bible, I'm like, oh my gosh, I understand and I know that name. Like, how cool. TV has always been one of these things for me that I've never really taken a big liking to, but my boyfriend is a huge TV encyclopedia, loves the TV. So I noticed myself being more drawn away from TV as of late. I think that it's just to give me space to fill my time with other things, like reading the Bible, connecting with people in the church, all these things. The last thing that I have struggled to read for a long time, not like I can't read. I never wanted to sit down and finish a book, or I was trying to read books that people were suggesting, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not really it. It's not hitting. And I just mentioned how much I love sitting down to read the Bible, but I've almost finished a book for the first time since beginning of last year, when I was reading fiction. What's the one when it's fake? I don't know. Whatever one that is. Fiction, nonfiction. And that was the last book that I was able to like really pick up start to finish and complete. And I was reading a book that my friend had gifted me, The Father You've Always Wanted by Ed Tanguy McGlasson. And this was a goal that I had set in the beginning of the year: wake up, read at least 10 pages of a book every day. And I had started reading this book before I raised my hand in church. So I do think if I go back now and try to read it, it will feel different, but just was kind of not really into it. But mindset's totally shifted. But I accidentally one day, my friend was talking about this book, and I said, oh, let me send you the Audible. Well, when I went to go send it, somehow I actually bought the book myself on Audible. I'm cooking my boyfriend dinner. I put this book on, and I said, oh, wow, it's only like 5 hours. If I listen to this on 1.7, I can be almost done this book tonight. And the book has blown my mind. And it's all about fasting. I don't have quotes to share with you. That would be really cool. But I've been listening to it on 1.7 speed. So I would like to go back and listen to some things. And I can't look at my notes from my phone because I'm using that to record right now. But the book is called Fasting. It is a cheap book. It's less than $8 on Amazon if you're like a physical copy girly. But the book is called Fasting, Opening the Door to a Deeper, More Intimate, More Powerful Relationship with God by Jentezen Franklin. And this book is over 10 years old. It's been around for a while. It has got 4.8 out of 5 stars. It's very highly rated. It's actually half off right now. So I will drop a link to this in the show notes or on YouTube in the description that you can grab that. My Amazon affiliate, I make like 2 pennies off of that per like 500 clicks. But the book is great, and it is a New York Times bestseller. And it talks about how you have to starve your flesh to feed your spirit, essentially. When you starve your flesh, you take away things that are just for gratitude. And you learn the sacrifices that are made. And you have this really intentional relationship and connection with God, how powerful it is to fast. And so some people will fast there's all kind of fasts you can do. There's like a 3-day fast where all you drink is like water and liquids. You might do a 24-hour fast. You may fast from social media, whatever it is. But the food fasts can be really healing, very cleansing. And what so many people talk about is that they did a fast, how miracles happened in their lives. And it really is you sitting down and you trying and you showing God, I'm here, I'm with you. here are my intentions behind why I want to do this. Here's what I'm hoping to gain from this. How can you help me? And essentially that's really intriguing to me, is the building more intimacy with God, building this connection with God, because many of us are very far away from him. Not that he's not working in your life and showing up for you, but our personal relationship with him is clouded by alcohol, staying up late, watching TV, numbing yourself out, eating crappy food. Oh, that's another one now. Girl, the crappy food is, whew, that's one. And fasting is meant to be kind of done in a private way. And I've seen people online talk about this either way. And I know that if I do end up doing a fast, it would be really interesting to see where my mindset would be around it. Is it something that I would want to keep private? Is it something that I would want to show up and talk about and share with other people? I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see when I get to that point. How is God asking you to fast? What is God pulling you away from? Is God calling you in a way? And are you listening? Are you listening? Eventually, he will have your full-blown attention, and you can facilitate this. And if you're someone here that's like woo-woo spiritual, which I totally get and totally was in that whole path and genre of my life at some point, and I think it might be weird for people that vibe in that arena to look at people that are like, oh, there's another one, finding God, cool, bye. The way that I would maybe offer you to look at this, if it feels abnormal or weird, in your woo-woo-ness, you're believing in something, right? And so you just may not be believing that it's God, or you might just be unsure. You just don't know. And what I would say is start to, again, question yourself and ask yourself, what are you being called to take away or eliminate? If what you're being called to add in or eliminate is difficult, do it. Like, please do it. Walk through it. Do the hard thing. Get some accountability. Invest in yourself. Hire a coach. However that might look for you, because in that hard thing, you will find potentially something bigger, greater, whatever. And that might just be enhancing your own spiritual connection. But for me at this point, I just am at a spot where I can't deny that there's something so much bigger that when I speak to it, it has been showing up for me. And God's not always going to show up for you the way that you want him to show up for you. So the best thing that we can do in the interim while we're waiting for answers, signed, prayers to be answered, is to put forth our best for him and the best for his purpose for our lives. And I'm excited to wake up and ask myself, how can I do that every day? And it's not perfect. Some days I sit and I start worshiping, and then I'll have a question, and before I know it, I've now been on YouTube for 30 minutes. And then I have to repent and apologize to God. Like, please, homie, give me some attention span, please. Anyway, that is kind of the journey that I've been through. And I just wanted to compile all of these little small seemingly things, because it's all in that stacking of a small thing that leads us to bigger, greater, bigger, better all the time. And that was a sermon that we just had in church about the God can do so much more for you. And that all starts with you having faith and thanking him for everything that he hands you. The good parts, the bad parts, the in between. Being so infinitely grateful for all of it. And knowing that if he showed up for you and done things in your life in ways that you're like, I can't believe that happened, there is more. And that more is so exciting to think about. It is so exciting to think about. And you can be blessed in this moreness when you simply start accepting and strengthening your intimacy and your relationship with your creator. It is cool. Okay? So My Bible's over there, but thump thump thump. I'm in it, girl. I am in the sauce. I am locked in, and I hope that you enjoyed this episode. If it spoke to you, slide in my DMs over at _Yolanda Russell. If you're watching this on the YouTube, let me know, how has God been calling you, and are you listening? Because if you're not, he's going to come and he will make sure that you listen to him. I promise you. I love you so much. I will see you next week.